Hello there, Roy Wulf here, and I'm here at the beautiful Second Kernstown battlefield for the 160th anniversary of the Battle of Second Kernstown. It looks like it's going to be a great weekend. We got a great group here. We got the old supply wagon pulled up, so we've just marched up and pitched our tents. But actually, we just drove up, so it looks to be a good time. So I hope you enjoy. In this video, I will not go into great detail about the battle itself, but I will share some interesting facts about it. For example, Rutherford B. Hayes, who would become the 19th President of the United States, was a colonel of the 23rd OVI here at Kernstown. Confederate Major General John C. Breckinridge, who had been Vice President of the United States prior to the Civil War in James Buchanan's administration, attacked Hayes from the flank and rear, sending his troops into confusion. Among the Confederates attacking was Colonel George S. Patton, grandfather of the World War II commander, General George S. Patton. Hayes needed to send a messenger on horseback to get help, so he dispatched a young lieutenant on that dangerous task. The lieutenant was William McKinley, the future 25th President of the United States. Young McKinley successfully delivered the message, dodging artillery and rifle fire to do it. However, later as president, he would be felled by an assassin's bullet. In addition to talking about the battle, in this video, I also just want to show you a bit of the reenactment itself and what the event is like. My friend and fellow reenactor Leo and I are taking this opportunity to walk around part of the Kernstown battlefield. This is a beautifully preserved battlefield, and the reenactment will take place on the actual ground of both 1st and 2nd Kernstown. Two scenarios will be reenacted at this event. In the first, Union forces will come down this hill, called Pritchard Hill, in a skirmish line. Our unit will have to drill the skirmish line to get it looking right. This weekend, we're portraying the 23rd Regiment Ohio Volunteer Infantry that fought right here at Kernstown. I'll be the regiment's chief bugler, so I'll be sounding calls all weekend. You can hear me practicing the charge in the background. Well, we finally got my humble abode set up. It's what's called a shebang by the Civil War soldiers. Just a collection of shelter halves, which are these, they're small sheets of canvas that you can carry in your pack, and then you button them together. And you can make complex structures like this. So looks to be, we're going to be pretty comfortable tenting on the old campground. In addition, we have a fly tent to get some shade, some larger A-frame tents, some small dog tents, and some guys are just sleeping out under the stars. We can also use them to keep our instruments out of the rain, so they're pretty useful as well as ourselves. What's up, brother? Meanwhile, the opposing force, the Confederate Army, is setting up their camp across that stone wall there. I'm sure we'll see more of them tomorrow. The first call I was to sound officially that weekend was dinner call, but I accidentally sounded lunch call instead, but nobody seemed to notice. Oh well. We rectified the matter by quickly sounding dinner call with fifes and drums. In the 1860s, fife, drum, and bugle regulated the soldiers' lives, in camp, on the march, and on the battlefield. You can see here this tune called Peas Upon a Trencher is telling everyone that it's time to get dinner. It's great to get some hot stew after setting up the camp. Unfortunately, if you set your dinner plate down for a few seconds, you discover the battlefield is populated by lots of ants. The ants go marching 2 by 2, hurrah, hurrah. Along with the battle reenactment, it's an interesting experience to live life as the soldiers did 160 years ago. Out on a big open battlefield, sunsets and sunrises can be very beautiful. Once the sun finally goes down over the horizon, the only light comes from the campfire and a few scattered candles. After sunset, it's fun to gather around the campfire and make camp music with fiddles, banjos, flutes, and so forth. This tune is called Soldier's Joy. So all in all, Civil War reenacting is a bit like ordinary camping, except that there's this added historical element. Of course, you've got to get used to sleeping on the hard ground, just like Civil War soldiers. At night, everything has to be done just by firelight. I had to check my YouTube account on my cell phone by candlelight, just like they had to do back in the day. After a blissful night's sleep, I'm up with the sun, and I put on my camp hat, which looks like something Dumbledore might wear, and I sound Assembly the Buglers. Well, it's finally morning, and it helps to wake up with a cup of hot coffee in our tin cups. So dawn is just breaking, so we're about to sound revelry. When Civil War infantrymen were at rest, they stacked their rifles like this. So we decided to stack our bugles for fun. Next we launch into the very long fife and drum reveille sequence. It's sort of a jukebox of the different military reveilles from around the world. This first tune is called Three Camps. I'll show you just a bit of each tune. The second tune is the slow Scotch. Third comes the Austrian. Again, as this long reveille sequence is being played, the camp is coming alive. The soldiers are getting ready because at the last beat of reveille, they have to be formed in the company street of tents for a roll call. The fourth is quite a long tune called the Hessian. Fifth, we have the Dutch, or as it's sometimes called the Quick Dutch, because you can actually add another tune before it, the Slow Dutch, if you want to make a longer sequence. The hits just keep on coming. This somewhat mournful tune is a beautiful Scotch air known as The Dawn of the Day. By the way, if you look at the bottom of the drum, you can really see the snares vibrating. To finish things off, we play a call known as Three Cheers, and then launch into a lively tune known as the Quick Scotch, or the Fairy Dance. Honestly, it's a little difficult keeping all these songs straight. To tie things up with a bow, at the very, very end, we do a short reprise of Three Camps. Soldiers had better be ready by this time or they're in trouble. That was just a 2-minute sample. The actual full reveille took us about 6 minutes. Late in the afternoon of July 24th, 1864, Union forces under the command of Colonel James A. Mulligan fell back to this wall here under heavy attack from their front and on the sides from various rebel forces. And as they were being pushed, rebel sharpshooters in a stream embankment hit Colonel Mulligan several times, and he was mortally wounded. As he was being carried off the field, he saw that his brother-in-law, who was the color bearer, had been hit also. And Colonel Mulligan uttered his famous words, "Lay me down and save the flag." And that actually became a song composed after the war by George F. Root. As an overwhelming wave, and the battle surged its billows round a chosen few and brave, and they neared the sacred banner with their foul and flaunting rag, when the dying hero shouted, "Lay me down and save the flag." So he fell, the brave commander, like the oak from mountain crag. But his last words are still ringing, "Lay me down and save the flag." So this is the start of the first scenario. We're moving into position at the top of Pritchard's Hill. This hill doesn't look steep, but it's deceptively tiring to climb. I just sounded the halt there, and then I sound the call deploy as skirmishers, and the men move first into groups of 4. I'll speed up the footage so you can see it happen more quickly. Here you can see them fanning out, and after that they're going to start moving forward again. Now we have to open up into a single line of skirmishers. This formation is very different from the typical Napoleonic tactic of having soldiers in a big massed formation grouped shoulder to shoulder. European observers of the American Civil War were quite impressed by this sort of open order formation because the entire army was moving in similar fashion to what only the French chasseurs à pied, the French light infantry, would maneuver. Meanwhile, the more numerous Confederates are in a massed formation. They are hurrying at the double quick from column of 4s into line of battle. They're about to hit our line hard. Here's another view of the Confederates moving up, but I'll return to discussing our skirmish line. All in all, this is a much more modern and forward-thinking way of moving infantry. One would see more of this towards the end of the Civil War. However, this modern way of deploying troops won't help us in this scenario because the Union troops were decimated at Second Kernstown. This was a big Confederate victory. There are a great many bugle calls to direct skirmish combat. The bugle is very suited to communicate commands with troops that are spread out in this fashion. Hey, we're under attack. I better keep my head down. We're moving forward quite confidently because we still don't know quite how outnumbered we really are. A skirmish line like ours would be sent out in front of the main body of troops to test out the enemy's strength. The loudness of the rebel yell would be a good indication that we're outnumbered, and the skirmish line would never be able to hold its own against a big mass formation of enemy infantry. We're being overwhelmed here. As Civil War soldiers would say, it's time to skedaddle. We've retreated to a more defensible position and we're trying to regroup. While we hold this position, the field musicians can be called to perform the other service that they typically did on the battlefield. There were no dedicated stretcher bearers in the army at the time, but rather field musicians, as non-combatants, performed this duty. Here we're evacuating a wounded soldier to the field hospital, which is set up as it was historically at the Pritchard House. We're kept very busy as stretcher bearers, and it's very arduous work. And we have to make our way through so many civilians here. It's worse than at First Manassas, I tell you. I think I hear our boys advancing again. I'd better hurry and get back to bugling. Despite our gallant efforts, we're just taking too many losses and we have to fall back. Without a doubt, we've been beat. The remnants of our noble troops are routed back through Winchester.
Evacuation of the wounded in that capacity, and so we were just portraying that during the battle. It's hard work carrying just a dead weight of a guy with gear on, so it's no easy task. But you really get a sense of what another side, and bringing them to a field hospital here. It's a whole other side on the original ground here, so it's pretty deep stuff.
Well, that was an exciting battle, wasn't it? Now it's just time to relax and recuperate and hydrate and just enjoy this beautiful land here. It's really a beautiful area here at the Kernstown battlefield. This is the Pritchard House on the battlefield. It was built in 1854, just 10 years before the battle, and fighting swirled around the house, and the Pritchard family actually stayed in the cellar during the battle. After Kernstown, the Battle of Kernstown, it was used as a field hospital. Colonel Mulligan was carried by Confederates, and he was attended to by a surgeon in here, and actually Mrs. Pritchard, who was from New York, was actually a Unionist, so she also helped with the field hospital in caring for the Union troops. But unfortunately, Colonel Mulligan passed away, though he was able to get last rites from a priest in the Louisiana Tigers Confederate Brigade. Looking out the window, I'm amazed how close the house is to the stone wall where so much of the fighting occurred. The Pritchard family was really in the middle of the fight. Before leaving the house, I just had to go up to the balcony and take a look at the Federal Field Hospital flag. On the next day of the reenactment, there was another battle scenario. I'll show you a bit of that, but it's very similar to the first day's engagement. It's portraying the same battle, but further down the line on a different part of the battlefield. This is an area of the battlefield behind the Pritchard House. As with the previous scenario, we're advancing in a skirmish line against a large body of Confederates. In addition to the main rebel force, we're also being menaced by Confederate sharpshooters concealed by some rocks. Under a withering fire, we find that we must retreat. We retreat back to the road to regroup, and if you look in the background, you can actually see another body of our troops come up. These troops are a force that we sent out to cover our flank. Unfortunately, because of a sustained rebel flank attack, those forces had to fall back. Our valiant skirmishers get a few last shots in before retreating to the field behind us. We've got steady musket fire coming at us from two directions now. As one officer in the 23rd Ohio later described it, Second Kernstown was a most destructive fire. And that accursed rebel yell doesn't make our job any easier. The Confederates are massing their forces for a final assault. Here they come. It's foolhardy, but we're going to attempt to make one last desperate charge. Oh, we're taking casualties. The Confederates are still advancing. After being soundly beaten, we're headed back to Winchester. The end of the scenario.
Alrighty, thank you all for coming out here for another CWHI 160th event. It's always great to have more opportunities to portray history other than Gettysburg and Cedar Creek. So give yourself a round of applause.
So he fell, the brave commander, like the oak from mountain crag. But his last words are still ringing, lay me down and save the flag.